so excited to talk to this next guest. I mean, it's space. It's NASA. And that's exciting stuff, especially here in Ohio. John, Glenn, Neil Armstrong. We got the people. We love space here in Ohio. And that's, as I said, I'm excited to speak to this next guest. Of course, I'm talking about NASA Press Secretary Bethany Stevens joining us on the Marcello's Hot Honey Hotline. Press Secretary, thank you for taking the time out for us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Jake.
And so let me ask you for the listeners, they may not be following this. I know they heard about the Artemis II and they saw the pictures and, their minds are blown by it because it's space. What is Artemis III and why is this an important mission for NASA?
Of course. We captivated the world with Artemis II just a couple of months ago. I'm sure most people out there in Cleveland saw this mission in some way, shape, or form, social media, on the airwaves, tagging along on our broadcast. But that's just the beginning. And it was funny to see what the public response was of, NASA should do this more often. This is great for morale. Well, we are. That's been the plan. Artemis III is going to take off in 2027, and it's going to go to Earth orbit to dock with both of our lunar landers. It's critical information for us leading up to a 2028 lunar landing. We're going to put American boots back on the moon, and this time we're going to stay. This is the next step in that journey, and it's right here. It's at our fingertips, and so we're building towards that. We've named our crew, and we've outlined what the mission profile is going to look like, and all of this is that next step.
So what are the biggest when it comes to like the technology milestones? Because I mean, Artemis II, there was so much, and there were the different tests and just the different upgrades. What are some of the milestones with the tech when it comes to Artemis III that need to be achieved before astronauts can safely take off? What are we looking at? What are some of the upgrades with Artemis III?
So we're looking at not one launch, we're looking at 3 launches. So there will be the launch of the crew aboard the SLS, Space Launch System rocket, and they'll be in the Orion capsule. Then there's going to be 2 separate launches from SpaceX and Blue Origin with both of their HLSs, Human Landing Systems. The milestones here are going to be getting into the Earth orbit, docking with Lander 1, whichever one that ends up being, and then docking with Lander 2, ensuring that our test pilots have the capability to capture those specific payloads, those landing systems, and integrate them with the Orion space capsule. So those are the big things there. Of course, we're going to be undertaking science. We're going to be testing different things related to biology, like human systems, how they're interacting with this. We're going to be testing the spacesuit in some way, shape, or form on this. We're also testing it in a vacuum chamber aboard the ISS, et cetera, because for the first time in over half a century, we're going to be putting a human on the moon. We're not using the same spacesuits that we did back in the 60s. We're not using the same landers that we did back in the 60s. And it's no longer just one rocket like the Saturn V. It's 3 because we live in a world where now we have multiple providers. We can do this outside of just one singular rocket. I know it sounds like it adds to the complexity. It actually simplifies things for us technologically, and we've made various advancements in the time that's elapsed since the last lunar landing. So testing out all of our systems, making sure that they work before we're actually sending an astronaut to the moon to try and use a lunar landing system for the first time.
See, I know a lot of people that have cool jobs. I mean, you have to have one of the coolest jobs to be able to be the one that breaks this news to people. I mean, as you're sitting here, you're talking, I'm picturing it, and oh man, yeah, your job's got to be one of the coolest. And somebody else, another group of people that have a pretty cool job. You selected the crew for the Artemis III.
We did.
Can you tell us about some of those astronauts and why they're the right people for this mission?
Absolutely. So we have an astronaut corps of a little less than 50 people. They're based out of Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. We announced that Randy Bresnik will be the commander for this. His call sign is Comrade. He's a veteran astronaut. He's been on many a space station mission. And the pilot seat, we have our ESA astronaut, European Space Agency. He's an Italian, Luca Parmitano. He's a test pilot who's been in the Italian Air Force for many years. He's going to be, along with Randy, leading the controls of the mission. And then our 2 mission specialists are Frank Rubio, who is from the astronaut class of 2017 and most recently trained our newest astronaut class that we announced last year. And Andre Douglas, who is the backup astronaut for Artemis II. So he trained alongside that crew for that mission, and now he's going to get to fly his own mission on Artemis III. So very exciting roundup of individuals there. And I know, and many people probably have been tracking the controversy of the selection process here and that there aren't women. And I've spoken with the administrator about this various times, and there's a large astronaut corps with a lot of assignments, and there are a lot of things that go into this. There's a preference for test pilots on a mission like this where we're docking with 2 separate lunar landers for the first time in history. It's one of the most complex missions NASA has ever undertaken. And no doubt, I'm sure there are female astronauts who could also be up to this job. That said, these are the best people for this specific job. And also, we've sent recent missions where NASA doesn't necessarily choose every single seat on an ISS mission. Roscosmos is choosing their seat, so the Russian Space Agency. And if there's an ESA seat like there is right now, ESA was responsible for choosing Sophie Adeneau. But we recently have had missions where we've had both of our people selected from NASA be women. That said, inclusion, diversity, equity, those aren't things that we consider in this process. We're considering these astronauts based on merit alone of let's assign these people to the job. And it's not something where the public's going to shift this assignment. We're not going to pull someone off because we have to put a woman on. And I also don't think our astronauts want to be placed on a mission solely because they're a woman. They want to be there because they're the most qualified person for the job. That's what we saw in Artemis II, and that's what we're seeing in Artemis III. So my hope is that the public will rally around this crew the same way they did that last crew.
Well, and I'll tell you, everything you said there, that's the right way to go about it. You want the most qualified people. You want the people that are going to be ready to go when they're selected. Get in there. It doesn't matter what they look like, anything like that. You want the best people in there, and it's the same if somebody's getting heart surgery. You want the best heart surgeon in there. It's not that hard to figure out. But I think you explained it perfectly. But absolutely, you want the best people in there. Now, even though they are the best, there's still some type of training they got to do to get ready for this. What are some of the trainings that these astronauts are going through to prepare for Artemis III?
Well, they started training the day after they were announced. So they started on Wednesday. They had their media on the day of the announcement, and now I know everyone wants to speak to them. They're training in the Orion capsule. They're training for the SLS rocket. They're doing all the same things that the Artemis II crew did. And then also they're going to be working with our partners for Artemis III, SpaceX, Blue Origin, and many others to acclimate to the technologies that they're using for their landers, making sure that they know how to dock with those landers, practicing that in simulations over and over again. They do other things as well, geology training. We saw the Artemis II crew did a bunch of training in Iceland to identify different geographic structures that might be analogous to something that they see on the moon. They're going to be doing science training. They're going to be doing human life support system training because, sustaining human life off of Earth is no small task. And all of them need to be able to jump in at any point in time and play that medical role. So various types of trainings. It's certainly intensive. And also, you got to keep in mind, when Administrator Isaacman came in here, when President Trump came into office, we had been doing these missions. It was looking like it was going to be maybe every 3 years, maybe 4, constantly getting pushed back. There's a very ambitious agenda here of we're launching on a yearly basis. We launched Artemis II this year, 2026. We're doing 3 in 2027. We're doing 4 in 2028, and we're continuing on. And along with all of that, we're building a moon base. We're launching the first nuclear rocket. These people are training quickly. And in the 1960s, we were seeing multiple lunar launches a year. So it may be ambitious, but these astronauts are capable of undertaking that level of training and carrying out this mission in that time frame. And we're in a space race, so we also don't really have a choice. Time is of the essence. And
it's a race that we want to win. Now, you might not have an answer to this question, but I got to ask, because we've talked about going to Mars. Is all of this, is this all leading? I know we're focused on the moon right now, but do you believe Mars is something that's realistic in the future?
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you say that, because Artemis is a part of a larger program that's called the Moon to Mars program. We need to go back to the moon first to gain the insights necessary to go to Mars. One day when we are going to Mars, it's not necessarily going to be, hey, it's a straight shot from Earth. There's a world in which we go to the moon and we launch from the moon to Mars. One of the other things that we're doing on the moon base when astronauts are living and working on the lunar South Pole, we know that there's ice there, water ice. We know that there's a potential for that to be manufactured into a propellant for future Mars missions. We can get astronauts to Mars right now. What we need to figure out how to do is how to get them back. And we're not going to send a crew to Mars until we are sure that those astronauts are going to be able to come back, tell us what they learned, and it's something that we can continually repeat. Going further for all of humanity.
And of course, we're talking to Bethany Stevens. She is the press secretary for NASA. Before I let you go, I got to ask you two more questions here. So, looking beyond Artemis III, in your opinion, what should Americans be excited about when it comes? Let's look at the next 5-10 years when it comes to space and exploring space.
I think it's going to become more and more achievable. We're going to be going back to the moon. People are going to be living and working on the moon. Americans are going to be able to get online and just see a live feed of the moon base and what's happening on the moon base. They're going to see humans living, not just being on for a short period of time, but living on another world. That's never happened in history. That's a really exciting moment. We're also going to see a nuclear spacecraft launch in 2028. That could revolutionize space travel. You have renewable energy to fuel a rocket. That means we can continue to go further and faster than ever before. It's no longer inhibited by the refueling. We can continue to go out and have humans potentially see further out than even our specific solar system. And I don't have a specific time frame on that, but I do think in our lifetimes we're going to see plenty of advancements that are beyond what we see as believable or achievable, things that you only see in movies.
That's incredible.
It's an exciting time.
Yeah, that's incredible. And then, because I always like to ask somebody kind of a personal question, so I got to ask you, because you have, like I said, you have one of those exciting jobs, and I've had exciting jobs, and there are those moments that stick out to me that I go, that was by far like one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to announce, or whatever it might be. You're NASA's press secretary, so I'm sure there's a lot of those. But what's been the most memorable moment for you so far?
Oh gosh, there's plenty. I would say Artemis II, but not even necessarily the launch and the entire mission as much as the splashdown. Watching Orion float through the atmosphere and splash down, and then seeing the crew the day after that come back to JSC, getting to be with them on their post-flight tour, and actually getting to personally know these astronauts. I know we see them as heroes, and they absolutely are heroes, but they're also humans, and they're great humans at that. And having the opportunity to get to know each of them, Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy, was just a huge honor and a highlight of my career. And I'm looking forward to doing the same with Artemis III and eventually Artemis IV.
Well, Press Secretary Bethany Stevens, thank you for your time today, and have fun. I mean, I don't think I need to tell you to have fun, but have fun, because it's got to be a lot of fun having your job, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Sounds good. Y'all have a great day. Thanks for having me.
You too. That, of course, NASA Press Secretary Bethany Stevens. That's so cool.
What a great interview.
I mean, we're talking NASA. We're talking Mars.
Living on the moon, going to the moon from Mars.
We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about this, because I gotta process this stuff. Realistic, we're talking about going to Mars. They're talking about water and ice and what? Yeah, we'll talk about it when we come back. This is the Jake Underwood Show.